Greetings, Microscopists. This is Eric Miller from Instructinate, and today we'll be reacting to an interesting movie from Toho Studios called Battle in Outer Space. Released in December of 1959, so it's sometimes labeled as being released in 1960, this movie is considered a bit special as it involves several of the men best known for making many of the original Godzilla films. Director Ishiro Honda, producer and special effects supervisor Tomiyuki Tanaka, music composer Akira Ifukube, and screenwriter Shinichi Sekizawa. This movie, set in the far-flung future of 1965, opens with some alien spacecraft swooping in from deep space and destroying this gigantic space station. As a result, everyone at the UN Space Research Center in Japan all start freaking out. But not to worry, our hero Major Katsumiya, played by one of my favorite Japanese actors of all time, Ryo Ikibe, says there's no reason to worry about the marauding space aliens because his new super laser is pretty hot stuff. Little does he know that the aliens have taken over the mind of Dr. Ahmed, but when he attempts to destroy the prototype laser, he's thwarted by Katsumiya's well-timed bucket drop. He then runs outside to head off to the alien rave party, only to find out he's been vaporized. So Major Katsumiya picks up these obviously super radioactive glowing rocks on the ground with his bare hands and then examines them in an electron microscope. So here we see the sample. Here he's looking in the monocular, talking to his assistant, taking the film canister out. He takes images of the sample and then shows them all to the UN scientist guys and tells them that he's found some kind of radio control apparatus proving Dr. Ahmed was under control of the aliens and that the radio signals are coming from the moon. So, backing up and looking at this microscope scene, we get this shot of something. I believe this is a real image from a transmission electron microscope. It's black and white, it looks very two-dimensional, as all TEM samples are, and since samples are so low contrast in the TEM, most biological samples have to be stained with some kind of heavy metal like osmium or something, just so that their structures are visible. And I believe that we can see a lot of that staining going on here. Now the big question is, what the heck are we even looking at? My background is in materials science, and this is definitely not anything materials related, let alone some kind of nano radio transmitter. And if I were to hazard a lightly educated and probably wrong guess, I would say this looks like some kind of plant tissue. I don't believe it's animal tissue, but I have no idea what I'm talking about, and if you can identify this thing, please let everyone know in the comments. Now we get a few seconds seeing Major Katsumiya looking into this extremely shiny new TEM, him taking the film canister out and handing it to his assistant. And in just these few seconds, we have a number of neat things we can talk about. First, I believe this microscope is the Hitachi HU11, which was first released in 1959, meaning that this microscope was indeed brand spanking new when this movie was filmed. The only image I can find of an HU11 online is JPEG compressed hot garbage, but it's pretty clear that this is the same type of instrument. This one specifically is apparently on display at Tohoku University in Sendai, Japan. Some interesting info about the HU11 is that it and its improved versions were sold from 1959 all the way until 1973. It was a very popular instrument and was the first Japanese TEM able to perform wavelength dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, or WDX, which nowadays, if done at all, is done on scanning electron microscopes. One thing we can notice, which is almost ubiquitous when we see a TEM on screen, is that the operator is using the eyepiece to examine the sample. Not only that, but this early version of the HU11 only has a monocular rather than binoculars. So what's the deal with these things? So to view the sample normally, you would just look at the phosphor screen in the fishbowl using your eyeballs, like we saw in the movie The Awakening. However, these eyepieces are like tiny telescopes, allowing you to look very closely at a tiny area of the sample on the screen in order to finely focus the image. So you would really only use these things for a short time just before taking an image, which is a small amount of time of the overall time that you'll be using the instrument. Of course, actors don't know that, and why would these microscope eyepieces be here unless you were supposed to use them all the time on this electron microscope, right? The point is that most of the time you see someone sitting at a TEM, the actor will be using the eyepieces, which is not really realistic. The other truly amazing thing about this scene is that Katsumiya unloads the film canister. I don't think I've ever seen this done in any other movie or TV show. This little box, which is located underneath the fishbowl right between your legs, holds all the film negatives, both exposed and unexposed, and has to go into and out of the vacuum system and remain sealed from any light. The exposures are numbered, and you would just need to keep track of how many pictures you took while you were using the microscope so you could remove the correct number of negatives while you're in a pitch black darkroom. Taking film pictures on a TEM was kind of a pain. So after removing the negatives from the film box, you would then have to develop them and then make prints. We see in the next scene that Katsumiya not only has prints, but enlargements made. Just from starting with the sample collection to doing the sample prep and taking images, developing the negatives, making enlargements, this whole process could easily have taken an entire week to do in real life. Fortunately, this movie compressed all of that down to about 19 seconds. As a total side note, towards the end of the movie, we see a computer-looking thing, and we have a few shots of it through the final space battle. This is the HiPAC 101, or the Hitachi Parametron automatic computer. This was Japan's first domestically made computer, which did not use vacuum tubes and was only revealed to the public in June of 1959, just before the filming for this film would have started. You couldn't even buy one for another year after that, so the HiPAC, along with the brand new HU11, we get to see some really serious high-end cutting-edge technology from 1959 on display in this film. Coincidentally, both products from Hitachi. Besides these two notable examples, eagle-eyed viewers can spot other Hitachi products. For example, there are a number of Hitachi televisions seen throughout the film, but my favorite is Katsumiya's Hitachi television in his car, which is pretty crazy. But don't worry, Hitachi doesn't get the red carpet treatment during the entire movie, as right at the end, one of the alien ships is seen destroying a Hitachi building. So how do we rate this scene? I would say it's really good. We have a great looking instrument, we see a real TEM image, we get to see a film canister, which is amazing, and it's not doing anything that an electron microscope can't actually do. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this. Now, if you know of any movies or TV shows where an electron microscope shows up, let me know about it in the comments. This is Eric Miller from Instructinate. Thanks. We'll see you next time.